Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is October the 14th, 2024. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Today was a good Monday, a very Garfield. We got that lasagna, if you will, metaphorically speaking. I feel like I gotta say that since I recently did eat lasagna in real life, which was good. It was awesome. But yeah, no, things were good. Things were solid. I was just thinking about this as I was like kind of working through the day and as I was like, getting ready to, press record or whatever. I was like, if this is the lead up for peak, this is probably the most prepared I feel for it. And I feel like the warehouse feels prepared for it. Because I felt like for like a really long time, there's always been this ramp up at my job, at my warehouse, with the amount of like quantity we're doing. Because, business is booming. And like we've just always been trying to like do the bare minimum in terms of like dealing with the trash. So I feel like things have been really moving like a well-oiled machine. The place that does our trash isn't like messing up, and they've been pretty consistent. So like knock on wood, best laid plans. We'll see. We'll really get into the heart of everything, into the thick of it. But things have been good in the lead up, and I feel good about that. Hopefully, things stay that way. Let's see here. What else did I really want to yap about? We can just get to the food corner. I got an interesting one for you guys. This is some super scran, I would say. It was a bit of odds and ends. I wanted a waffle. I'll tell you how we got here, right? I'll tell you about my little mood board as I got through the week and got to Sunday and wanted to make this meal. I wanted a waffle. I was just feeling it. I was like, it's been a little bit since I've had one. So let me go ahead and put waffle on the list of things that I'm desiring. And I missed out on the hot dogs. If you recall back to a previous episode where Isaiah forgot the hot dog bun because he's a dum-dum. Well, okay, I got hot dog buns now. So now we're ready to go. It's glizzy time. So now we got these two components, right? And then there's a third thing I gotta mention. I also wanted some sushi. So here I am in my house. I've compiled all the tools to consume this kind of meal. So this is essentially what I got. Oh, and plus we'll get to the little twist I did. So I made a waffle. I made kimchi hot dogs, because while I was there at the Kroger picking up sushi, I noticed that they had kimchi, and I was like, ooh, yummy, yummy kimchi, awesome. So I got some kimchi. I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I'm just gonna eat it with the sushi. That's fine. That's a win. Love that. Haven't done that before. So I was like, well, we can just do that with the sushi and more. Why not? So I made kimchi glizzies, and then I put some kimchi on the fries with some cheese. Hola. It was so good. It really came together. It was so yummy. It was such a weird, like, ensemble of food, but it worked. I had no problem with it. Like, I wouldn't say I had that busy or noisy feeling when it came to it. I will say I wanted to eat more, but part of the reason I kind of wound up adding the sushi and the kimchi was because I like have a very limited amount of bacon. I should have got more bacon. It's kind of one of the things I missed. And I was like, okay, I have enough bacon, but I don't want to use my bacon tonight on a Sunday. So let's just go without that and use the sushi, and at least half of the sushi, because I still have some more. I still have some more kimchi in the sushi. But I was like, let me use half of that now. And I will say maybe the weirdest component was the sushi on the plate. Didn't really pair with anything. But I will say, it's always... maybe I'm crazy for this, but like, I don't mind mixing food or whatever. So like, especially because I'm a McGriddle child. I am a child of the McGriddle. I was raised on it. Had my first food pukes. No, I think probably my first like real food pukes off of a McGriddle, man. That was real, where like, this is too much to be eaten in the morning. But yeah, I like syrup on like pretty much anything, everything. You can get me into it. I have no qualms with it usually. It's almost like it's like a Canadian honey when you really think about it, right? But yeah, that was the food corner. I really enjoyed it. I remember just like kind of doing the cleanup, and I'm like, this worked. Like, I don't know if I would do it again anytime soon, but like if it came up again that I wanted all these things again, I would do it. Like chef's kiss on that one. All right, so yeah, enough yapping about food and whatnot. I feel like I definitely had a shorter episode yesterday. I don't know. I was kind of dragging on some things, and I also forgot a story that I'm going to get into later in this episode. So it's like, okay, let's just kind of do a bit of a bundle, a bit of a bigger one maybe today. And as you can see, it's Monday, and I just felt like blogging a bit. So you know how it goes. But let's go ahead and do our startup, and we'll get into some news. All right. From ABC News. This is more of like an update ticker kind of thing where they give you like a whole like bevy of news in one kind of like big article, if you will. But I just kind of wanted to hit some, let's say use the word highlights in a way. But there's been a lot of back and forth between Israel and Gaza and Lebanon. I feel like Lebanon is definitely the highlight right now in terms of this phase of, Israel's, fucking operation or whatever they're going to call what they're doing. I don't think they like calling it an occupation, but it seems like they're trying to do a lot. But anyway, let me not get too in the weeds at the start. What was the first headline I wanted to hit? IDF claims it killed head of Hamas aerial unit. Samir Abu Daqqa, the head of Hamas's aerial unit, has been killed, the IDF claimed in a statement Monday. Abu Daqqa was killed during an Israeli airstrike in September, the IDF said, but did not say where the attack took place. So I guess that was like an update that they were trying to say. But granted, that's just from the IDF. That's not fully confirmed. I feel like they love saying that when it's the other side, but if they say it, hey, you're supposed to treat it as gospel. And media's like, okay, all right, that's fine. This is an important one. Netanyahu denies IDF deliberately attacking UN peacekeepers. So I remember hearing about this and thinking, is this like something I already covered? It's like, no, it happened again. Essentially, there was a situation that took place where like tanks came into a UNIFIL like base, and they were like, getting active, and then it's like, okay, they stood down and left, like, I think within like 45 minutes to an hour, but like someone was injured. I think there was like tear gas or something that was also like went off. So like other people like, had to endure that, which is, fucked up. But it's like, what, yet again, another person was shot who is a UN peacekeeper, essentially someone who is supposed to be a neutral agent here. Like, they aren't supposed to be taking any one side or the other, but essentially Israel has taken the stance of, well, you're in the way. And I hate to, use cheesy movie references or whatever, but it definitely feels like the Anakin Revenge of the Sith, where it's just like, if you're not with me, dog, you're against me, dog. And it's like, that doesn't negate an atrocity that you're about to do. You cannot just shoot a UN peacekeeper, but they're like, we're about to do it 5 fucking times. Pow, 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 pow. Like, they just do that. And, there's outrage and people are upset, but yet again, it's just this boundary gets pushed and pushed and pushed if there even was one to begin with. And it's just like, okay, essentially it just gets boiled down to, okay, you guys should just leave. You guys should leave the area. But it's like, no, man, we are here to keep the peace against both sides. And Israel's defense is like, well, you haven't been doing that for Hezbollah. They've been sending missile strikes, into northern Israel. So it's now time for us to do your job. And essentially they're like, now it's time for you to leave. And it's like, no, we're not leaving. Like, we're doing the best we can here with resources we have. Like, I've talked many, many times before about how limp-wristed and useless the UN is in any kind of situation, any kind of capacity. This offshoot is no different, you know what I mean? But essentially, they're just getting caught in this crossfire here, and the IDF just kind of comes boom, 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 booming, and, you know, nothing gets done, and you just hope we're not going to cover an actual death, and it's just people getting wounded. So yeah, that was a bit of a long-winded intro into this part, but after several members of UN interim force in Lebanon were injured in airstrikes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied that IDF was intentionally attacking peacekeepers, even though it sure as fuck feels that way. That charge that Israel deliberately attacked UNIFIL personnel is completely false. It's exactly the opposite. Well, I don't know how. If it's exactly the opposite, then people wouldn't be getting shot or getting blown up. Like, what are you talking about, dog? But that's what Netanyahu said in a statement. Israel repeatedly asked UNIFIL to get out of harm's way. It repeatedly asked them to temporarily leave the combat zone, which is right next to Israel's border with Lebanon. I believe they call it like the blue line or something, which I'm like, that's cringe for American reasons. ACAP. But like, okay. So that's been a matter at hand that I failed to mention, but I was just like, look, bodies are literally hitting the floor, and I don't always want to cover the shit day after day after day after day. I try to make some breakage, but yet sometimes when I do that, things are just very, very active. What I mean, sometimes it's all the time, you know what I mean? But it definitely feels like things right now are very much ramping up, and sometimes it can just kind of get lost in the shuffle if I don't talk about it. So I'm trying to kind of almost do a supercut, if we will. So let's just try to keep moving as I keep yapping. 54 killed, 258 wounded in Lebanon in past 24 hours. In the past 24 hours, 54 people have been killed and 258 have been wounded in Lebanon, according to the Lebanese Ministry of Public Health. The total number of casualties since Israel increased attacks on Lebanon in mid-September is now 2,309 people killed and 10,700 people injured, the ministry said. Let me scroll ahead. I did want to get to at least a part about Gaza. Doctors Without Borders staffer killed in northern Gaza. A Doctors Without Borders staffer was killed in northern Gaza, the organization announced Monday. Nasser Hamidi, I'm totally going to get this wrong, I'm sorry. Nasser Hamidi Abdelatif al-Shalafu, 31, was struck by shrapnel Tuesday and died of injuries to his leg and chest 2 days later, according to the organization. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. Obviously, that's very fucking unfortunate. And sad that this is one of those things that's just going to get lost in the tread of this fucking war. And this is another thing. I know I'm going to, just submit myself to the weeds here, but I find it very strange and very odd that we keep doing the spin. Like, I see the spin in terms of media of like, what's stopping an all-out attack? Read here, like, we're worried about a forever war ensuing. And it's like, what do you mean be ensuing? Like, it has been a thing. Like, I realized, like, very quickly that, like, this is something that it's weird that you try to, like, say, oh, well, now that it's so bad, like, this we don't want it to get worse. Like, what does that mean? Like, oh, well, it's going to potentially affect the West. That's what makes it an all-out war, forever war to us, is that there's enough spillover where it's like we might have to actually see it in a way that is too noticeable, or we're going to have to put people on. Oh, that's another thing that actually reminds me. I didn't even have this actually queued up. My bad. We are sending anti-missile defense with 100 troops or so to match to Israel, mainly because of the Iranian missile strikes that happened. So they're like, oh, we got to make sure that we back you guys once again to the hilt. Always, we are pretty much putting boots on the ground. But well, don't worry, we're not. They're just operating the equipment, even though we can't teach them how. It's crazy. We teach the Ukrainians how to work the shit just fine. But when it comes to Israel, our most sacred of allies, shit, man, there's no expense spared. But yeah, back to this forever war shit. I just think it's weird that the media acts like, oh, this is something that we're ramping into, when it's like, no, this is the terms of engagement. Like, Israel said, no, this is what we want. This is the price of the Zionism that we want to achieve. We could set the shit up anywhere, but we want it here in our specific land. So says our little book, it's just crazy that the narrative isn't like, no, we are watching a forever war and we are just like watching the highlights. Like, it's just weird that it's like, no, it's a conflict until, X or Y happens. Then, okay, well, now it's a full war. Like, or enough, countries are now involved. Like, how many countries does it take? Like, I guess really when I started looking at like the ramp up since Lebanon, I really started like really asking myself this question. And now I'm here just talking about it out loud. And I just find it very strange. But that is just, I guess it makes it seem lesser and less of a thing, and it makes it easier for the person who's listening to just kind of shuffle it to the back of your brain, right? Like, it's just a thing. It hasn't gotten that bad, right? It's not a forever war yet. It's not an all-out attack yet. Like, but what do you mean? Like, everyone's gotten involved. Syria's taking shit. Like, you realize, like, Egypt has more or less completely capitulated so that they don't get dragged in any further than they are. Like, who isn't involved in this? Saudi Arabia has to make decisions off of this shit. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's more. I'm sorry. Once again, I'm taking the moment to really talk about this shit. So, bear with me, y'all. From NPR, 4 Israeli soldiers killed in Hezbollah drone attack that leaves dozen injured. All right, let's read this real quick. Israel's military said that 4 soldiers were killed and 7 others were seriously injured in drone attacks by Hezbollah targeting an Israeli army base near the central city of Benamina. Hezbollah, the Lebanon-based militant group backed by Iran. That's like the chant that they do in this situation, since you can't like do the October 7th thing. They have to remind you that this is connected. They're the proxy for Iran. They're the big bad. It's like, well, isn't Israel like our biggest fucking proxy? Like, what the fuck does that matter? They just need to evoke as much emotions in you as possible, I feel like, when they set this shit up. They can't just leave it as this and this and that. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is me reading into it too much, but that's my beef with even the NPR, brother. Non-biased ass NPR. Let's see here. Israel's rescue services said the attack wounded 61 people in all, including several in critical condition. All the injured were transferred to hospitals for treatment. So yeah, that is the updates. I know I just kind of just did a twirl through this shit. But that's why I cite my sources. I just read them yourself. But yeah, that's good. We got that off our chest. We got that into the ether. Let's move on to the next thing. From CBS News. Arrest made after FEMA crews threatened amid hurricane relief efforts. As the nearly 65,000 residents of hard-hit Rutherford County, North Carolina, struggle to clear endless mud and debris left behind by Hurricane Helene, help hit a roadblock. Federal Emergency Management Agency crews, or FEMA, were forced to relocate due to a reported armed threat against workers, first reported by the Washington Post. An email sent by the U.S. Forest Services to federal responders in Rutherford County alerted them of an apparent stand down after National Guard troops reportedly encountered armed militia saying they were hunting FEMA, which is fucking crazy. Like, people just trying to be on their purge shit. Like, for what? But like, you say for what, but it's like, I wanted kind of to get to this and take the opportunity to talk about some of the conspiracies that have kind of been just pumped out by, I really feel like you can clearly point it to just fucking conservatives on the right. But I mean, essentially just conspiracy theorists in general love to hoot and holler about whatever they think they can get their hands on in terms of like, oh man, this is what the government's doing to you. But let's keep reading. One person has been arrested in connection to the threat, CBS News confirmed on Monday. Let's see. Out of an abundance of caution, FEMA said its disaster assistance teams were being stationed at fixed locations instead of going door to door, which has been the agency's common practice in the past. FEMA continues to support communities impacted by Helene and help survivors for assistance. For the safety of our dedicated staff and the disaster survivors we are helping, FEMA has made some operational adjustments. Disaster recovery centers will continue to be open as scheduled. Survivors continue to register for assistance, and we continue to help the people of North Carolina with their recovery. FEMA said in a statement to CBS News. Let me see here. Let me just get to the suspect. The man suspected of making the threat was identified as William Parsons, 44, of Bostic, North Carolina. He was arrested and charged with going armed to terror the public. The sheriff's office said Parsons was armed with a handgun and a rifle when he was arrested. He was released on a $10,000 bond. But essentially, he had made a comment about potentially harming FEMA employees working on recovery efforts in the Lake Lure and Chimney Rock area. He also had said that there was like trucks of like militiamen who were coming to do the deed. So yeah, the initial report stated that there was a truckload of militia that was involved, the sheriff said. However, after further investigation, it was determined that Parsons acted alone and there were no truckloads of militia going to Lake Lure. So this is a really unfortunate situation that can kind of fucking unfold. I think the initial mind would think like, oh, what would make it like something like FEMA, a government organization, like stop doing the thing they're supposed to do? You would think like, oh, it's some sort of like looting or something like that. But no, it was someone who was like, no, I'm gonna be a fucking militiaman for, I don't know, God knows what. And it's like, I'm just gonna stir this shit up and scare these motherfuckers off. And it's like, for what, dude? Like, or you were just gonna scare them off and then some and escalate and they're like killing them? What was that gonna do? But let me get into some of these fucking, false claims, theories that have been dredged up. False claims of service online, including that the federal government planned to halt search and rescue efforts in order to seize and bulldoze Chimney Rock, and that victims were only receiving $750 in aid. Many of the conspiracy theories have promoted FEMA to create a page on its site discrediting rumors and false information about its response to Hurricane Helene. Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly spread misinformation, suggesting FEMA money for hurricane victims was diverted and given to migrants. Although FEMA does sometimes provide aid to migrants, the source of funding is separate from disaster relief. AKA, you need to take this problem to fucking Congress if you have a problem with how the money is divvied up. If you think, oh, the illegals are getting too much of the aid, well, guess what? That's what your current, fucking conservative house is doing right now. So, like, be mad at them, dude. Yell at them. Go fucking yell at Matt Gaetz and his fucking hair. Like, it's crazy that you're like, no, I'm gonna fucking harass FEMA workers. I'm gonna harass anyone. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, this isn't the fucking move, man. Like, trust me, I get it. I get having a distrust of, one, the government. Two, specifically FEMA. Like, I remember Hurricane Katrina. I remember the fucking shitty response. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, yes, that is bad government. You can be upset about that. But at the end of the day, what is happening here is not the government trying to deprive you of aid. It is the system being fucked up and ill-equipped to actually give you the aid that you need. That is the conspiracy unfolding right before your eyes. But, like, at the end of the day, that is not some fucking, shadowy motives and machinations. Once again, you can trace that shit. You can connect the dots to that shit, bro. You don't need a militia to fucking figure that out. You can try to tackle this problem in so many other ways that are actually helpful and useful. But instead, it's like, no, I'm going to try to do, like, domestic terrorism. Like, I'm just going to try to do that instead. It seems way cooler and more action-driven, and maybe, it gets me some clout or something. I feel like that is definitely the energy of a lot of people these days, sadly. Instead of just saying, let's stop and use our head and try to make not the most out of a bad situation, but, like, survive. Like, once again, you need to do that in these kind of moments right now. You need to make the most out of what is available to you. And, like, it is a fucking shame that right now, something that is delaying FEMA is actually people who are like, oh, I'd rather fucking harass and assault or do whatever to the people who are trying to give me aid. And you're making this shit worse for everybody who needs it. You know what I mean? Even just the fact of having to change the style of this and being like, we have to be at a location, once again, just makes it harder, especially with now the more and more information, or you can even almost say disinformation from, I feel like, once again, conservatives like Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Like, you are intentionally doing this shit, dude. It's not an accident. You're not just saying this shit. Like, sure, that's what you'll say if ever put fucking screws to your shit. I mean, hell, you'll have the Supreme Court say this is a presidential act, I bet. But at the end of the day, you're doing it intentionally. So it's a shame that people are playing with people's lives. It's crazy, and this is a conspiracy that I didn't talk about on the podcast. I really, like I said, the more I cover these things, the more I hear them, the less I really do want to talk about them, because I feel like I just move them around. I'm sloshing them around. I mean, I'm not a big platform or anything. It really doesn't matter what I cover or not. But like, it feels gross to even really talk about this shit out loud. Like childish even. Like the idea that we are controlling and generating hurricanes, like anyone is doing that. Like Joe Biden is doing this. Like literally, Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to come out and say, oh, Joe Biden, the Biden administration, Harris even, fuck it, who cares, is coming through making hurricanes in Trump like controlled areas like Florida, to reference Milton and then, Helene as well. Like this is all from him. It's like, why would you say this? You are literally a politician. You would be a part of the problem. What are you talking about, lady? But once again, this is just something that riles up your base. It gets you likes when you say it on Twitter or whatever. It gets you clicks and views on the clips. Like, it's frustrating the links that people will go to for attention. And it's like, nah, dude, you're fucking with people's lives because people are dumb enough to believe this shit, which is also fucking sad and crazy. That people who are my age, older, like, you have sense. Like, some of these motherfuckers have degrees. Like, they don't care, though. They're fine to just buy the lie. Like, it's easier for them. Or they hop on the bandwagon to, once again, get their own clout or attention. It's crazy. Like, I can't imagine, dude. I really fucking can't, Anyway. Wanted to talk about the situation. I'm talking myself hoarse here. Let me go ahead and take a water break, and then we will talk about Boeing. This is a story that I should have covered yesterday. Mea culpa. It just, slipped my radar, even though I had it on my fucking radar. So I was like, all right, I'll cover it, today. All right. All right, from CNN. Boeing to lay off roughly 10% of its workforce. So this is a pretty unfortunate thing. A move by Boeing. Once again, and I wanted to say boo, tomato. Fuck you to the fucking corporate, CEO of Boeing. Fuck you to the motherfuckers up top at Boeing. This is fucked up. But anyway. The CEO of Boeing told employees late Friday that the company plans to cut 10% of its total staff over the coming months. Our business is in a difficult position, and it is hard to overstate the challenges we face together, said Kelly Ortberg, who started at the CEO of the troubled aircraft maker 2 months ago and has been dealing with a strike of 33,000 hourly workers for half his time on the job. The announcement is just the latest blow at the troubled plane maker, which has faced losses of more than $33 billion in the past 5 years. A string of severe, sometimes fatal safety lapses and increased scrutiny from regulators and law enforcement as a result. So we've talked about Boeing a good amount on this podcast, so we're going to, skip along through some of this stuff. But essentially, Boeing has said, hey, we were up against it here, and I'll just go ahead and read. Boeing had already announced it was instituting rolling unpaid furloughs for a large share of its non-union employees to try to save cash during the strike by members of the International Association of Mechanists, or I'm going to say Mechanists, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, Mechanist Union, or IAM. Those furloughs called for the affected employees to be cut off work 1 week out of every 4. Friday marked the end of the 4th week of the strike. The layoff decision means that the next furlough cycle will not happen, Ortberg wrote Friday. Employees will be informed about the future of their parts of the company starting next week. So essentially for them, they're like, well, this is a measure we're going to take, and at least that means we don't have to do this. But once again, you guys could come to the table. I believe they're losing about $1 billion a month by not coming to the table to negotiate. And like they're saying they are like I think they said it was like a 25 or 30% raise. But once again, just like kind of when we were talking about the longshoremen, it's not just about the raise. There's more to it than just the money incentive here. In this situation, it is the projects that the union parts of Boeing are working on, which I believe is a 737 jet. It's already phased down to like being like a cargo plane of sorts, so it is not in as much production. And essentially, they're saying, "Oh, we're cutting that," and they're like, "No, that's like our job. You're cutting our job. You're trying to cut us out." And it's like, "Nah, dude, like we don't want that." And essentially, they're like, "Shrug, shmee, and once again, I feel like you're gonna have the CEO and the people up top being like, it's just hard times with their pockets out and shit. But it's like, no, these are hard times that you guys have set up. We've talked about this shit. I want to say at length at this point. Like, this is a monster of your own making. You wanted to make shareholders happy, so you cut corners. You fucking had other parties and shit work on these fucking things and then didn't do proper inspections on said things. Like, you have fucking roosters coming home to do the roosting shit that they do, okay? Like, you can't now say, oh, well, we're gonna put this on the employees. Like, nah, man. Yeah, sure, that's bad business, but it's crazy that people have to pay the fucking price for that shit. You know what I mean? And it's not even just that, y'all. Like, once again, like, people have died over this shit. Like, lives have been lost. Whole ass planes have gone down, okay? So, the stakes are fucking high here. And it's crazy that, once again, they're just kind of like, hard times. It's just rough out here. It's like, how about y'all motherfuckers start making the right decisions? Making the right moral fucking decisions, instead of once again, the right decisions for your bottom lines, for breakage, for, your fucking profit margins. Fuck that shit for like once. God damn. But, I don't see Boeing doing that anytime soon, Well, hopefully, it's good that we've kind of had at least a media break from like a Boeing thing, like going down or having an issue. So we'll take it, right? Let's knock on wood. All right. We have one more thing that I wanted to cover. I know it's been a grinder. Hopefully you're still fucking with me. Hopefully you've made it to the end. Because I mean, hey, this is edge to edge pizza today. I already mentioned Trump before. We got another dude. Turns out, third time, not the charm. But let's go ahead and take our last break, and we will go ahead and get into the last thing. All right. From the Associated Press. Man with loaded gun arrested at checkpoint near Donald Trump's weekend rally in Southern California. Oh, man. Here we go again, dude. What a fucking campaign. What a fucking season. Assassination season, I think. Methinks. But yeah, not getting the job done. At least not here. I know we had covered this as an assassination yesterday. Shit. That one did go all the way through. That is what that is. But yeah, did I read it? I'm spaced out. Let's just read it again for good measure. From the Associated Press, man with loaded gun arrested at checkpoint near Donald Trump's weekend rally in Southern California. I'm pretty sure I did. My bad. Okay. A Nevada man with a shotgun, loaded handgun, ammunition, and several fake passports in his vehicle was arrested at a security checkpoint outside of Donald Trump's rally Saturday night in the Southern California desert, authorities said. He was released the same day on $5,000 bail. I love that because that's less bail than the fucking other guy. He was fucking, making up like, I got a militia on the way to kill you. Like, fuck. The suspect, 49-year-old Las Vegas or resident of Las Vegas, was driving an unregistered black SUV with homemade license plate that was stopped by deputies assigned to the rally in Coachella, east of Los Angeles. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco said at a news conference on Sunday afternoon. The driver claimed to be a journalist, but it was unclear if he had the proper credentials. I'm guessing maybe not. Deputies noticed the interior of the vehicle was in disarray, and the search uncovered the weapons and ammo along with multiple passports and driver's license with different names, Bianco said. So this is sus all over. The man was arrested on suspicion of possessing a loaded firearm and possession of a high-capacity magazine. Excuse me. Let's see. The suspect is scheduled to appear in court on January 2nd of 2025, according to online records. Bianco declined to speculate about the suspect's motives or frame of mind. We know we prevented something bad from happening, and it was irrelevant what that bad was going to be, Bianco said. Now, I want to take a little pause here, because you know me. I like to equate things to where I'm living and where I'm at, especially since I am always online. I loved that I saw some motherfuckers on my shit already shifting to conspiracy theories because they just fucking can't help it. And like, it's either the conspiracy theory or we're talking like it's a spin zone or something. Like we're trying to sensationalize it. And like, I'm like, okay, I don't think so, bro. But let me click on the article and see. And sure enough, it's like, would you think this Magoo ass fucking journalist is a journalist? No, I wouldn't. And let me go ahead and put the allegedly here, because this motherfucker came out after the fucking bail or whatever, and he's already like, hey, this sheriff better not keep talking shit or I'm gonna sue him. And I'm like, brother, you're on your John Wilkes Booth shit, allegedly. What do you mean? Be happy you get to get out on bail. That's crazy. It's crazy that this shit is so minor, and I find it very hilarious, I guess. Like, I mean, shit, if Elon Musk can laugh about this shit, why can't I? I'm sorry, right? I mean, this guy owns a whole fucking X everything app. So, I mean, if he can get away with it, why can't me? A small bean, home-style, homemade podcaster, you know what I mean? Why can't I have a little fucking yuck about it? Because it's crazy. 3 times. Granted, I mean, none of these have been like, I feel like any good attempts outside, not even Crooks, if I'm being honest about it. At the end of the day, he got very lucky that like there are so many fucking like lax holes when it comes to the law enforcement that is involved in guarding anybody, really. I mean, if you're not top dog president, you're pretty fucking vulnerable. I think that's really what this proves. Once again, people I think sometimes get it confused, but I said it when I talked about it with the Crook situation. Donald Trump is a former president. There's only so much you can give him. And not to mention, I listened to a whole fucking thing on the Daily talking about how, like, oh, man, the Supreme, or not the Supreme, the Secret Service is just so strapped. Like, it is a whole ass fucking process and phase. It takes years to become a Secret Service agent that guards the vice president, the president. You got to get put in, like, St. Louis for, like, I think, like, a few years and some shit. It's a whole fucking road. And, like, it takes a whole fucking track, not to mention shit gets so crazy and you're guarding so many people. I think they said since, like, Barack Obama. Like, you're just constantly in the weeds and you're just not experienced enough. Not to mention you just, quote unquote, don't have the best kind of training because you're thrust into situations you're once again not prepared for. You're like in the White House now. And you're doing this and you're doing that. No. It's a whole thing. You can listen to that on the Daily. But at the end of the day, it doesn't blow my mind. It doesn't stretch my imagination that you have a fucking season where 3 people have tried to assassinate a guy. And everyone kind of hates this guy so much that you really can't even remember him. Like, I don't think it's going to matter by the day we go to vote on election day, you know, that this guy people have come for this guy 3 times. Because at the end of the day, no one gives a shit. They just like what the fuck he's saying, or you hate what the fuck he's saying. He's this polarizing person and no more, no less. Like, he is a fat man in a suit. He is the orange man, you know? So it just is what it is, I guess. But I definitely would be remiss to not cover the 3rd attempt on this motherfucker. Once again, I guess you got to say allegedly, whatever. But just crazy. But yeah, that's where I will leave it for today. Let's see here. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/IsaiahNews. Feel free to join. It's more like a tip jar, you know, but I do shout you out at the top of the month if you'd like, you know, plug a project thing you're on if that's what you're into. Let's see here. Freeways, hit me up, isaiahnews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Please subscribe to the YouTube. Hit that like. Leave a cool comment. Also, you can join the Discord if you want to like send any like real feedback or any like corrections. I mean, I'll see them or whatever, but it's just keep it. I like to keep it positive in the comments, right? For the vibe, for the yago. But it is what it is. Just appreciate any kind of interactions. It's always nice there. But really, what I appreciate the most, and especially if you've made it to pretty much the 40-minute mark here, I'm sorry, that's my bad. It's a long one today. Why not? But thank you for listening to me. Like, I can't tell you how validating it is. I can't put it into words, like it really does mean a lot to me, that you've been hanging out, especially maybe you're not listening to this part. Maybe you're just a person who's clicked so many episodes just to support me. That also means a lot. Hopefully you just, the thing just ran over. You couldn't get to the fucking next track, yet. And you're just listening to me. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love you. But yeah, just thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.